What was it like to be in New York, near Ground Zero? I saw you running around with everybody else there those days.
Yeah.
What was the mood of the city in those first couple of days?
You know, I went into New York the next day because I was in Washington when it happened, and Senator Schumer, my colleague, and I were flown to New York by FEMA. We were the only plane in the sky except for some of the fighters that were doing patrol. We landed at LaGuardia. It was just quiet, eerie. We took a helicopter into the city. As we were helicoptering over Ground Zero, we hovered above it. And, you know, I'd stayed up all night. Obviously, I was on the phone, but I was glued to the TV set whenever I wasn't in a meeting or trying to, you know, figure out what was going on by talking to somebody. The TV pictures were so horrific, but they didn't capture the full extent of the damage. You know, the TV, you know, I mean, you're a professional. I mean, it confines and contains the picture. So there I was up in the sky, hovering above Ground Zero, and, you know, the flames were still burning. The smoke was thick. As we were over it, we saw firefighters beginning to run because they thought there was going to be a further collapse of some of the structure that had been damaged, but that luckily didn't happen. And, you know, I can't think of anything other than Dante's Inferno. I mean, it was as close to a visual depiction of hell as I've ever seen. And, you know, we landed, you know, on the west side, that heliport. We went into the area of Ground Zero with the governor and the mayor. And I remember watching the firefighters coming out of this wall of black soot, dragging their axes, some of them, you know, totally exhausted. They'd been on duty 24 hours straight. And I just, you know, my eyes were just totally teared up from the emotion plus the toxic stew that was in the air. And I just watched these men come out of that hell, and I just was so overwhelmed by their courage. I mean, everything that has been said about them, every single tribute that has been, you know, given to them is not adequate to what they did, to the danger they ran into, to the lives they saved, to their ferocious pursuit of any survivor that they could possibly find during those early hours of the rescue. And it was, you know, just the first of, you know, many visits and personal feelings that I just was trying to, you know, frankly get under control because I had a job to do. I mean, it was an extraordinary sense of just feeling so grateful and proud and in awe of what we were doing through those brave people to show what our spirit was, what our resilience was, what New York and America were made of, and trying desperately to figure out what I was going to do to help people. How was I going to, you know, make the case, which we had to begin to make immediately. You know, a few hours after that, we were at a big meeting, Senator Schumer and I, where it was the biggest table I ever saw at the command quarters that had been set up. And about 10 o'clock at night, we found out that the administration had sent up a bill for $20 billion in emergency funding for the Defense Department and to rebuild the Pentagon without a penny for New York. So, you know, the work was intense, and it had to go on literally around the clock. So, you know, there was just a flood of feeling that I had to kind of harness to do my job.